our letter, so.
Well, I actually have a plan, okay? I want to enforce Article 1, Section 6, Paragraph 2 of the U.S. Constitution, which just says you cannot be an office holder, the second part. You cannot be an office holder and be in the legislative seat.
Okay, so what are you saying that means?
Well, lawyers are all officers. They're
Of the
officers of the court. That's right. They're not supposed to be holding office.
Were any of the original founders, weren't some of the original founders lawyers?
They were.
So how did they get around it?
Well, it's a good question. My guess is it was obvious what they were doing. You could see the laws. They were simple laws. People knew they were being honest. And then things
So what would you
changed.
ask, that these lawyers, what, do one of two things, resign from office?
Yep.
Or?
Either resign from office or give up their bar license. Now, I'm not talking suspended. I'm talking surrender it.
Because one of the weird things is they get to make laws that they later use to fight for, so it's kind of a conflict of interest almost.
Tell me why you have a class action lawsuit, okay? Whole bunch of people have been injured by something. And the lawyer sends out all these things and basically takes their rights to sue and then sues the company. And if he wins, the one who didn't get injured, gets half of the settlement. Now all the people have to split the other half. Why is that fair? Because the lawyers wrote the law. That's what they wrote it would do. And to me, it's the most corrupt thing because it's like
right, even a third would still be good, but half.
Yeah,
Wow.
they can get half. It's like playing a game of football. Okay, you got the government. And the founding fathers looked at it this way. We're against the government. It's the people versus the government. Okay? The people are supposed to write the laws. The attorneys are sort of the referees. Okay? They're supposed to enforce the law. Well, the judicial branch enforces it, but they're the referees. They're the ones that call the plays. Well, I found out that the referees are writing the laws.
So they just make their job.
And they're playing for the other team because they're officers of the court. So they're part of the government. Okay?
So we don't have
the
a
people
shot.
don't have a chance of winning this game.
And the only chance we have
Is getting the lawyers out of the
or jury nullification, but then they never tell us about that, so that'd be the last stop is jury nullification. And they never, I learned that in criminal justice class, and most people don't have a clue what that is. And that's where your class action lawsuit comes in. They can actually say, you know, the law is bad, and then the law is thrown off. But so many people on juries don't know that they have that ability. They think they're just going, did they violate the law? Not, is the law actually a bad law? Like drug laws are a big one on that. Mm-hmm. You know, if you don't believe that they should have the drug laws, and you're in a case where there's the defendant has violated some drug law, you could actually vote not guilty.
Right.
Because you could say the original law is bad, but they don't ever tell us that. That's supposed to be the last of the people. But you're right, because I actually saw a video where a judge said he was not going to instruct the jury of that is their right, because if they don't know, yeah, they say if they don't know, it's not. It's actually in our Constitution. You have jury nullification. That's supposed to be the last way for the people to say, like if the Obamacare went through and came
I wouldn't know the law, but
right, but I'm saying if you didn't agree with, well, the case I heard was a real quick one. It was the gentleman read him, he was slow, and he wasn't allowed to have a gun, because I think he was a felon and he was slow, and he saw in a magazine how to be a private detective. So he went out and bought all the equipment that it says to buy, a gun. Well, the police found out, they told him to go home and get it. And then he brought it back, because it's a slow guy, he wasn't trying to harm no one. Well, and then they get him for possession of a firearm. Well, the jury nullified the law, because they said, wait a minute, it's not that black and white. This guy, if we don't nullify it, we have to put it guilty, and that's just not fair, because if he was such a threat, why did the police ask him to go home and get it? You know, there were so many other things going on.
Right.
But they actually nullified the law.
You know, for years people have always wondered why in the world, when the Supreme Court overrides something the legislature has passed, you know, the legislature doesn't go out and do something about it. You know, rewrite the law to fix it, or you know, they don't. Well, that's because 56% of the Senate are attorneys. There's no way, they've already taken an oath to serve this other branch of government. They're not going to override.
Right, because later when they need that back, they need to be friends.
Yeah.
We are live on Stupid Politics Tuesday. Please call in with your questions. Well, this is great. I mean, so much to get through.
It's the worst corruption I've ever imagined. And not only does it violate that, but it violates the division of powers provision.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no separation there between the legislative and the judicial if it's controlled by the judicial officers.
And you would think, the funny part on that is you think that, like the healthcare bill, they would go to the doctors that are there, like Dr. Paul, and there's a few other doctors that, you think they'd go to them and say, you know what, let's get your intake, because, no. Didn't even go to those guys. They'll never go to the actual profession. The lawyers all sat there and wrote this 2,000-page bill.
I actually probably, I don't know, 8 years ago maybe, I talked to an attorney and asked him to represent me and file a lawsuit against the legislators that were unconstitutionally holding office. And he told me that he thought, it seemed like they had a real good conflict of interest there. Thought I probably could, I probably was right, but there was no way he would ever represent it because he would be blackballed and never win another case.
I was going to say, is that your fear of being called the names? Because you know you're going to get, you're kooky, oh, that's...
Now, you read the Constitution, and
I
you know...
I'm a Ron Paul supporter,
and I'll read the part. It says, and no person holding any office under the United States shall be a member of either house during his continuance in office. You can't misinterpret it.
So they should, if nothing else, they should resign their bar license.
The problem is, the judicial branch was supposed to be enforcing the Constitution, and they're not enforcing it upon their own officers. So, they enforce it on everybody else. I got an appointment to the Indiana Manufactured Housing Installer Licensing Board, okay? And as soon as I told them I was running for Congress, they told me, you're going to have to give up that office. You can't even be a notary public and serve as a legislator. It is an appointed office. Well, they enforce it against every other office. They enforce it against the military. You can't be a military officer and be a legislator.
Right, right. You're not even allowed to be in the military and really talk politics.
Right. So
there's a fine line.
But they don't enforce against their own officers.
Well, no, because they can write the laws, use it,
And what law can a lawyer write that doesn't benefit himself or his branch of government?
Right, right, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're not sitting there writing laws.
And
let the people be free.
If you keep thinking about it, I mean, like I say, it's the most corrupt thing I've ever conceived. If you keep thinking about it, if there's more divorces, the lawyers make more money. If there's more bankruptcies, the lawyers make more money. If there's more crime, the lawyers make more money. Everything that tears down our society, the lawyers make more money. Well, it seems like it would be a conflict of interest for them to be writing those laws, because what incentive do they have to keep society from breaking down?
Right, absolutely. And the more things you make it, that's a great point. The more things you make a criminal act, the more things we get to enforce.
I've always heard you can't legislate morality.
I believe that with my whole heart.
But you can legislate things that cause the immoral.
Some things, I believe wholeheartedly, that's our very problem, is we try to protect people from themselves, and you just can't.
But you can do things that actually promote the degradation of society.
Oh, absolutely.
Such as your tax laws.
Oh,
making it cost more to be married. Or you can legislate things. And like the EPA, the Congress thought they probably felt they would get in trouble for having the EPA make all these regulations. Not the EPA, but the Congress make all these regulations. So they let the EPA do it. And they put appointed people to make regulations, which is actually passing laws.
Right, but we don't call them laws because that's how they get around it, wording.
Right.
I'm going to hold you on that thought. We have a caller.